Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today's video will have spoilers from episode 5 of The Acolyte. My last video was sort of a tribute to the Jedi Padawan Jecki. We broke down her personality, her mentality. We theorized about her upbringing in the Jedi Temple, after David Bowie and his stealing girlfriend irresponsibly left her at the footsteps in a basket. We talked about how the rigid structures of the Jedi Order didn't properly prepare her for the job she was trained to do. For those of you who follow this channel regularly, my criticisms against the Jedi Order probably are not surprising. I mean, for some of you, it might be getting a little old at this point. I get it. But today, we'll be looking at Jecki Lon's counterpart on Master Soul's ill-fated investigation team, Yord Fandar. Now, let's just say I think you'll be surprised about what I have to say about the Jedi Order, as far as his relationship with the Order. Yord Fandar. The name alone sounds like a hero from the Flash Gordon universe or some other retro sci-fi adventure tale. It also sounds like a good alternative name for Zap Brannigan.
Look at those pathetic cavemen down there, loading their silly catapult with... What is that, Kiv?
Hey Congo, show one more. The kids need to know about Futurama.
Spare me your space-age techno-babble Attila the Hun.
One more.
We know nothing about their language, their history, or what they look like. But we can assume this. They stand for everything we don't stand for. Also, they told me you guys look like dorks.
They look like dorks!
As you can see, that's like 95% of my humor right there. Which is why right off the bat I liked Yord Fandar. I mean, he walks onto that Neimoidian starship like he owns the damn thing and then immediately violates the mind of the captain in charge. This is pre-body cam era for the Jedi, of course.
The Republic has legislated that only droids may perform outer ship repair.
I timed that scene. It took about 15 seconds for Yord to enter that bridge and then just, like force tase that poor Neimoidian's mind. I mean, yeah, Neimoidians can kind of be, not the nicest species, but they don't deserve that. No one deserves that. And then there's that scene of Yord patiently waiting on Osha's bed like a teenager on prom night about to get some for the first time. Is using the Force to lift your cape up slightly so it looks more majestic against the Jedi Code? Because I feel like it should be. Look, we can all make fun of Yord. We can all laugh at how ridiculously over the top he is. He's designed this way as a character. But you know what I always say? If you have the time, it's always nice to truly get to know someone. Use your empathy. Because when you do truly know someone, you know what their motivations are. You can't help but feel either compassion for them or pity for them. And Yord, when you look at him, if you laugh too hard, you'll miss the other side of him, the deeper aspects of his character. Yord looks like the ideal representation of a Jedi Knight, a Paladin. Even his Padawan looks the part. People who look like this are either naturally gifted and talented, and basically everything kind of just lines up in their life. Those people are kind of boring. Or you're like Yord, in which case you have to kind of work hard for everything. Long nights of physical training, a lot of jaw exercises to get that chisel right there. And then also, you got your martial arts training, reading the Jedi Code and manual. I wouldn't be surprised if young Yord was at the bottom of his class as a youngling. I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the last younglings to be picked by a master in his class. Yord looks the way he does now because he's probably dreamed of this his entire life. He's dreamed of the respect and purpose one has when they become a Jedi Knight, and he worked hard for this. How do I know this? Well, I played a lot of sports growing up. Football, basketball, make napalm in the woods. And usually there was always one or two individuals who had no talent, no skill, but they really stuck to whatever sport we were playing and they worked their asses off doing that sport. And, those were the guys that were usually the most solid at the end of the day. It's easy to be naturally talented and then be good at a sport. It means nothing, in a lot of ways. Those guys who are really just everything comes easy to them, they peak in high school. They become the captain of the football team, and from there it's like downhill. But the guys who really work hard, they understand what struggle is and they become comfortable with struggle. Those are the guys who make it far in life. At least that's the way I see it. I know Yord is like this because he reminds me of those kids who have that hunger, who have that desire to better themselves. Instead of just coasting through life as a Star Wars YouTuber. I mean, look at his eyes in this cape scene again. Look at the lack of confidence he has when he sees a person from his old life, Osha, a person who might remember the younger Yord who was not as successful, who didn't have a really nice golden cape.
Yord?
OSHA brings a vulnerability out in Yord that, naturally gifted Chads just don't have.
You finally passed your trials.
I made Knight 2 years ago.
Never thought I would see the day.
I mean, that burns. I think OSHA's not trying to be mean here. This is just the way she probably used to talk to Yord when they were buddy-buddy back in the Order. But, for Yord, you could tell he's sensitive about this. It was not easy for him to get to where he was now. I mean, even amidst, he just became a knight only 2 years earlier. And he's definitely in his 30s, which is, a decade later than most talented Jedi achieve knighthood. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was the oldest Padawan in the Order for quite a while. And we've already established, Jedi teenagers are still teenagers. They can be complete shitheads and terrible and mean and bully people who, are just not good at doing stuff. But the fact that he can admit it took him that long means he's honest. He's not hiding his struggles, which I respect. And the fact that he laughs away OSHA's little jab shows us that he's in control of himself. He doesn't take himself too seriously. His ego is not inflated because of his station. He also might have a slight crush on OSHA.
I never thought that I would see you again.
At which point he goes straight to business, removing his personal relationship from OSHA and treating her like a suspect for a crime. And look at this, when OSHA reaches for her hip, what does Yord do? He reaches for his lightsaber. This is not an overconfident individual. This is a well-drilled and trained Jedi Knight who falls back on his training and the structure the Jedi Order provides. He is vigilant and takes his job seriously. A long time ago, I was shooting a documentary in Taiwan, and we ended up in like a tiny little village, a mountain village in the middle of nowhere, and we ended up trying to get directions from a cop, the only cop in the town, for miles in every direction. And while I was looking over his shoulder at the map, I was standing really close to his gun hip, and he kept on scooching away, and I pointed it out, and we laughed about it. But he explained to me he didn't know who I was. I was a lot bigger than him. And he used to be like a vice cop in Taipei, in the largest city in Taiwan. So he'd seen some stuff, and I thought that was interesting when that happened. And it reminds me of the situation. Yord has a lot of these habits baked in already. I don't know if it's from experience or just him drilling things, but he takes his job seriously. His mind is focused, even though he's in front of OSHA, even though he might have emotions for her. He puts them aside, and then he just interrogates her properly.
Why would I kill Indara?
If I recall correctly, Master Indara advised the Jedi Council to discontinue your training.
I know Yord looks like a dick here, but he doesn't know what we know. He doesn't have an honest point of view of this story. Look at it from his point of view. A person from his past who he potentially might have feelings for is being identified as a suspect for a murder. They even bring a witness in and immediately identifies her. But Yord manages to focus on his job.
Oh, when I see her. That's her! She killed the Jedi and ruined my bar!
It doesn't matter what I think.
And being a police officer, having that power in your hands, especially as a Jedi peacekeeper without any checks or balances, body cams, third-party watchdog organizations, well, I guess the Sith is sort of like that in an unorthodox way. It's not easy. It's not easy to not let the power get to you. Yes, Yord does abuse that, Neimoidian's mind, so, he's not perfect. But I can appreciate a peacekeeping officer who takes his job seriously and doesn't immediately go for corruption and give an easy out to someone just because he knows them. Me and Congo were riding in Vietnam a while back, and we got pulled over by a cop in a small Vietnamese village, and this dude reeked of rice wine. He had shades on, couldn't see his eyes. His eyes were probably bloodshot, and he had a fake Gucci sweater on. I'll never forget this. Gucci was misspelled, and there were golden flakes all over the thing. It was a gaudy mess, and this dude worked us over. He threatened to impound us, take our bikes, potentially throw us into Vietnam jail, which would have been terrible. And this happens a lot in the world. There are a lot of corrupt police officers. I've been in Thailand too, and I've ran into the same police checkpoint multiple times. Granted, it's more organized, and it's more convenient for the people getting, extorted, which is nice, I guess.
Hello, finally back.
But this is awful. This is awful stuff. This happens everywhere. It happens in the U.S. as well. It's even more organized in the U.S. But when you have a peacekeeper, when you have a Jedi, They represent more than themselves. They represent the idea of the Order and the power they have, the security that they're supposed to provide for the galaxy. Every time one of these Jedi abuses their power, it makes it tougher for every other person doing that job in the organization. It's not only corrupt, it's selfish. It erodes the public trust. It makes the job more difficult and dangerous for everyone. And since the Jedi are the only peacekeeping force in many parts of the galaxy, that's a terrible thing. But that's not Yord. I mean, he remains humble, he remains hungry, and he really is trying to be the best Jedi peacekeeper he can be. And I respect that. When the prison ship Osha is on gets waylaid by a few escaped convicts, Yord doesn't blame the automated prison ship system or the droid guards for Osha getting away. He literally takes responsibility for this mistake, even though he could totally blame it on someone else.
I thank you for choosing me for this mission. I should have brought Osha in myself. I apologize for my error.
We leave in 5 minutes.
I will redeem myself.
Yord, put your clothes on.
A lot of people don't have character to take responsibility for stuff like that. I don't think I would have. And this reflects who Yord is, an overachiever, someone who worked his ass off to get where he is. And he did this not by taking shortcuts, not by blaming other people, because I tell you, if you do that, if you adopt that mindset, you'll go nowhere in life. For Yord, when he's facing a problem, he doesn't look outwards, he looks internally. He assesses what he can change himself, what he can control. You know, if more people thought like that, maybe the world would be a better place. Or the world would look like Japan, which is great, but also not great. At the same time, I can't help but feel bad for Yord. Not even Master Soul takes him seriously. I mean, he kind of just gives him a pat on his back, like, okay, buddy, don't make this weird. And Jecki, who gives me Hermione vibes here, she's just so annoyed at Yord for kind of no reason. And she probably also thinks he's an idiot. It's clear these two have a rivalry of sorts, which is kind of sad for Yord. I mean, Jecki is a Padawan. She's probably a teenager, a child, as Master Soul says. And that's who Yord is competing with. Maybe like 2 years earlier, they were both Padawans. And, Jecki was probably half his age. And Yord gets schooled by Jecki all the time.
We secure the perimeter. Jecki stays on lookout, and I will confront this imposter. Stun him, if need be. Then we bring him back to the ship for questioning.
Or we skip that, and she just talks to him.
Bro is so excited. I feel like he stayed up the night before, drew out his plans on construction paper with crayons. But here's the thing. This is just competition, good-natured competition, which drives everyone involved to be better, I guess. Yord never allows this competition to take control. He never lets it get in the way of completing the mission, which is important.
What if this is a trap?
Yord, stick to the plan. Do not interfere. Master Soul wants to face her on his own.
Yord will even listen to a Padawan like Jecki, who is lower ranking than him. And that's because Yord, he doesn't punch down. Maybe that's because he knows how it feels.
Yord, do you understand what the Basil is saying?
His name is Basil, and yes.
It might be hard to see sometimes, but Yord is quite good-natured. He's a person who depends on structure, the structure of the Jedi Order, but he also lacks an ego, so he's quite open-minded. He'll even listen to a potential criminal like Osha.
Turn off your saber. Do it. The light attracts them.
Attracts what?
That's the thing, Yord fully buys into the Jedi Order, the Jedi Code, and this is what he chooses in life. And while such restrictive codes are not ideal for some individuals like Jecki or Anakin Skywalker, for Yord there is comfort in structure. There's peace in knowing that you have a set of ideals that you can depend on, that can guide you through the night like the North Star. And it can kind of lead to awkward situations like this.
I must protest over not restraining the prisoner. She has escaped once before.
You still think she killed Dara?
You don't. Even if her sister was alive. May would not have the training to defeat a Jedi Master.
At this point, again, no one knew that Osha was not the killer, so Yord is correct to be like this.
We're not escorting the prisoner back to...
Osha is coming with us. I believe she can help.
Master, Osha is not...
The Jedi agree with me.
Setting course for Olega.
Yord could have completely called out Master Soul for having an attachment here. He had every right to do so, because it seems like he does. Yord could have been an overzealous asshole. And, that's when institutions become problematic. That's when dogma becomes problematic. But that's not what Yord is.
You're gonna need to hand that blaster over.
Well, it's mine now.
Well, it's actually the property of the Jedi Order, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to insist that you hand it over.
Okay, that one's a little petty, but you know, Yord, for the most part, he doesn't let the rules take over from reason and compassion. You know, we all know people like this. We all know people who need structure in their life that can't get out the door without planning everything. And, you know, those kind of people usually get really pissed off at me because I'm super chaotic. Like, I won't follow instructions even when doing something completely needing instructions, like building Legos. And honestly, people like Yord who are obsessed with order and structures and rules used to really piss me off. But over the years, you know, I've gotten older and hopefully wiser, and I've begun to appreciate these kind of people more because honestly, they're disciplined, they're predictable, and they're dependable. Yord is Yord. When he gets injured early on in that fight with Chimera, Master Sol, the commander of the mission, has lost most of his forces. Yord clearly wants to prove himself and not leave his leader alone here, but when Sol tells him to secure Osha and bring her safely back to the ship, he obeys without hesitation. I know I always talk about individuality and the importance of it, to not be like a mindless follower, but sometimes when you're doing something with other people, when you're carrying out essentially as a police operation, you do have to follow the chain of command. Everyone can't just be doing their own things because that would make things extremely chaotic and it would get more people hurt. There's no time for egos in these life or death situations. There's no time for hesitation. And I appreciate that Yord understands this. Probably every bone in his body wants to do the opposite. And fans are going to think he's a coward for running away, but I would argue that he's heroic in his own way by doing this. He's not looking to be a hero. He's not running away also from a fight. Especially because he does come back later on when Osha comes up with that stupid plan with the Moths. And here's the thing, we're painting a picture of Yord not being very competent. But if you look a little closer at his actions, he's actually not completely useless. There are moments of brilliance when it comes to Yord. When Osha slips away at Master Torbin's temple, he tags along. And if he hadn't, Osha would have had some explaining to do. When the Jedi first attacked Chimera, Yord was the only one who kept his cool. He resisted whatever kind of Sith magic Chimera was using. And he also saved that one Asian Jedi from getting killed. Or at least extends her life like 20 seconds. And even when Yord gets hurt and Chimera is about to cut him down, he's not scared. He doesn't plead for his life. He has his lightsaber up in a guard position. He's ready to go down fighting. That's a courageous person. I'd probably be crying and, begging for my life, promising to go to the dark side. I don't want to die. And when Osha tries to stun Chimera, look at his reaction.
Osha, run!
Yord embodies the Jedi ideals, the good ideals, to be the protector of the weak, the innocent. He doesn't just talk about these things, he lives this lifestyle. He doesn't shy away from his duty, he's not afraid to risk his life for others. And that's also how he goes down. And honestly, that was awful to see. I really did not like that. Because Chimera is the opposite of Yord. Things obviously come easy for him. He's clearly a prodigy in the Force. Even his movements, his lightsaber forms are slightly sloppy, but sometimes no matter how hard you train, no matter how much effort, sweat, and tears you put into something, there's just going to be some naturally gifted individual who's going to steal your thunder away. And you lose. Because that's how it usually pans out in real life. Yord's death hit me harder, honestly, than Jecki's. Because nothing came easy for Yord. He worked his ass off to get where he was, and it's very clear very few people respected him. But still, he made no excuses in life, and instead of letting his failures make him bitter, it actually made him have more empathy for people who are overlooked.
I've known you since we were younglings. May has always been your wound. Maybe Sol brought you here to face her, but maybe he brought you here to face yourself.
That last line surprised me. I think most people are born with intelligence. It's not something you can learn or work on as you get older. But wisdom is something that you learn from experience and also from ego death. To be open-minded. That is where a lot of wisdom comes from. To question things around you, to not just take things as is. If Yord had a chance to grow old, I think he would have definitely ended up wise. That was his trajectory in life, and maybe one day he would have even made it onto the council. For where Yord lacks in skill and natural talent, he more than makes up for it with his heart and determination. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. See you next time.